I see quite a few clients that have this issue with histamines and they don't realise that it's histamine. So there are estrogen receptors on mast cells. Mm-hmm. So when our estrogen goes up, it attaches to a mast cell, our histamine goes up. So a lot of the PMS symptoms that women can experience, so the fluid retention, the bloatedness, sometimes the bowel changes, anxiety around their periods, puffy face, all of that sort of thing. The mood changes as well. So mood issues are another symptom of histamine issues. Can be related more to histamines than the high estrogen itself. Wow. So the high estrogen is a factor, because obviously estrogen going up at certain times of the month, but the fact that it's pulling histamine up with it is what's causing a lot of these symptoms.
Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host Steve and Nick, and today we are talking about something really cool.
We are talking about something really cool, something a bit close to my heart. Histamines.
Histamine?
Yeah.
This is stuff that gives you a runny nose and stuff?
Well, yeah, that.
There's more to it,
There's
isn't
a lot more to that.
A lot more to it?
Yeah. The reason that I thought this would be a really great topic is because it seems to be becoming more prevalent, histamine intolerance, and it's very difficult to identify. And because there's so many systems that it can affect, so it does a lot more than just give you runny nose and itchy eyes. So, which we're going to go into all of that.
All of it.
Yeah. So
now, it was funny because before we were starting this, we exchanged notes and we do our own research and all that sort of thing. And Nick said, "Oh, can you print this thing off? It's just a little summary." And I went, "Okay." She goes, you might have to print it in a larger...
Can you just expand the print a little bit?
And I mean, I know, look, for those who aren't watching, but this looks like a freaking essay of War and Peace. Yeah. For those who are watching, they can see this chart. That's a summary of what histamine does, and it's like for those who are listening...
Of the symptoms.
Yeah, summary of the symptoms, and it's like, I'm on here 20,000 times. It's like everything.
I know.
But the crazy thing about it is it affects so many systems. And you mentioned intolerance, which is very interesting. Yeah. Because people think histamine is something, and it is, a chemical that we produce in the body. It's part of our immune reaction, allergic reaction you may have heard of. But we also eat it.
We do.
We eat our mucus. No, we don't.
We eat our mucus, did you say?
Yeah, mucus, because histamine's associated with mucus.
Yes.
But it's incredible. It's found in all sorts of foods. Yeah. And not just, we're not going to say... histamine's only found in McDonald's foods. It's found in healthy foods.
It's found in a lot of healthy foods, yeah. So when we'll talk about a lot of the different foods that it's found in, because it's some of it can be surprising.
Super surprising.
Yeah.
And also now, as we've said, and I've asked you this just before the podcast, that you suffer intolerances to histamine, so this is very close to your heart.
Yeah, I have had histamine issues. I think I spoke about previously. After I got COVID last year, I had significant histamine issues, which I've never had before. Yeah. And we'll talk about how viruses can cause issues.
Oh, yeah.
But then I look back and I think I've always had issues. I would talk about migraines and things, but I used to get migraines all through when I was a child and different things. And when you kind of hit on something, you go, oh, wow, it just all sort of falls into place. Yeah. So, yes, I have a genetic, which we'll talk about as well, polymorphisms, which means I don't break down histamines overly well. So if there is a build-up, then I'm going to struggle, and that seems to be quite a common thing. So we're going to go into all of that.
Amazing, because I suffer from histamine excess, but due to another chemical that I've got high levels of, genetically high levels of, in the body called calcitonin generated peptide. Yeah. And that's a migraine-y thing, but that's associated with histamines as well.
It is.
But let's start with yours, because yours sounds more interesting than what mine is. I mean, as I said, I'm looking at this. It looks like a flower.
It does look like a flower.
It's quite pretty, actually.
It is. And we wanted it in colour just because I like the print.
I had to print it out, for those who are just listening, in an A3 sheet, which is, two A2s, obviously. A4s, two A4s. It's a massive thing, just so I could read it. Now, I know I'm old. Yeah. But there's so much writing on that summary. Yeah. But what... So let's just start with the start. What is histamine for those who are thinking? What is histamine?
Okay, so histamine is a chemical that we produce in our body, as you said, and we can also take it in endogenously, so externally. But it has a lot of very important functions in the body. So when we talk about histamines, and I said, histamines are bad, and we don't want histamines. We do. We just want them in, like everything in the body, in the right amount. So not too much and not too little. So we produce them, and like you said, they are part of the immune system, so an inflammatory response. So when we have our immune system is activated, it does send out these histamines. So they're housed in mast cells. So I don't know if anyone's heard of mast cell activation syndrome, which is very closely connected to histamine issues, but it's the next level. It's a lot more severe. So then when we have the immune response, the mast cells then degranulate. So they sort of basically blow out all these inflammatory markers. And there's around 200 actually inflammatory markers.
I didn't know how many there were, but I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, so it's not just histamine that's housed in mast cells. There's a lot of other, inflammatory markers, but histamine seems to be an issue for some people. So we have that immune response. These histamines are sent out. So they travel through our bloodstream, and they make our vessels, our blood vessels, permeable. Yeah. So as it's going through, you're basically putting histamine out so that the white blood cells can get to the area, the site that the pathogen is at, and sort of neutralise it. And that's what inflammation is. Inflammation is actually part of that sort of healing type process that the body does to try to isolate and then heal that pathogen. So histamine is what we need that for that. We also produce histamine, as I said, internally, so within the cells, and it's also a neurotransmitter as well. So really important neurotransmitter in the brain, part of the sleep-wake cycle, appetite as well, so regulation, so lots of different things, as central nervous system activation, all that sort of thing. So really important for that side of things as well. So again, if you don't have enough histamine, you can have issues with, drowsiness and tiredness and not being able to function well and that sort of thing. So super important from two different angles. And as you said, we can take it in through food. Yeah. So lots of foods also have histamines as well. So obviously then the gut comes into play when we're talking about histamine issues as well, and what the condition of the gut is. So that's kind of what histamines are in a nutshell. And then why do some people suffer from histamine intolerance? So
it's weird, isn't it?
It is weird. So histamine intolerance is basically either like high levels of histamine, so you've had sort of an exposure to high levels of histamine, the inability to break histamines down, or both. Yeah. So that's basically what an intolerance is. It's just that we're all producing and probably bringing in a lot of the same type of histamines. It's just how well your body responds to them coming in and how well it breaks them down as to where some people can go a little bit sideways.
Amazing. I mean, histamine, we've sort of got two very, very broad areas. We've got the food one you're talking about, and we've got the allergy one. Now, we're not going to talk too much about allergies today, but degranulation of mast cells via IgE antibodies is significant for allergies, because when you've got say you eat the wrong sort of food, say you're allergic to peanuts, you eat peanuts, you get this IgE response, histamine response, your body tries to flush whatever it is. Like it's spring this time of year, you get some allergens up your nose, and everyone, has this terrible histamine reaction to flush the allergen out. It should normally be tolerated. The immune system should be able to tolerate it, but it can't. Yeah. So a lot of people take antihistamines, and a lot of people have heard of that. Yeah. Now, if you were in 1960, let's say, and you took an antihistamine then, it would be a H1 class, which means it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Yep. And you correctly point out before, histamine does involve in wake-sleep cycles. In fact, if you went to the pharmacy now and asked for something to help you sleep, and it's not natural, they'd give you an antihistamine. Yeah. They cross the blood-brain barrier and put you to sleep.
Yeah, it makes you drowsy.
No, hugely. Yeah. And if you ever taken those cold and flu tablets, the nighttime one is an antihistamine to stop your runny nose, dry you up so you can sleep, and also put you to sleep. That's right. So histamine is very important for the brain. We're going to pick on it today,
we are.
but it's good for you. Now with food intolerance, that's not IgE, that's IgG, isn't it?
IgG, yes. So histamine intolerance isn't a food allergy. No. So when you're taking in high histamine foods and you react, it's not a food allergy, it's an intolerance. So it's, as you said, it's IgG mediated, which is a little bit different than an allergy. There can be a crossover.
Yep.
but standalone histamine intolerance is not one of those food allergies. Anaphylaxis is a food allergy, whereas histamines are involved in that. So that's where the crossover occurs.
Yeah, there is crossover.
But it can be a little bit different. So where are we?
Well, let's just talk about allergens, and a lot of people might have heard of an EpiPen. Have everyone heard of that? Where if someone's got a severe anaphylaxis shop, I'm sticking my own leg. People on camera not seeing me thump my own thigh. But basically, it's adrenaline. Now, histamine dilates blood vessels, and adrenaline constricts blood vessels. Yeah. And that's why when you're stressed, your blood pressure goes up because it releases adrenaline and you constrict it. Same with exercise, your blood pressure goes up. Not bad for you. Nope. It's transient and it's good for you, in fact, exercise, but it does increase blood pressure temporarily. Yeah. So histamine dilates the blood vessels. So this comes into a few other pathologies that we're going to talk about today, like migraines and headaches. Yeah. Get unexplained migraines. It could just be histamine, along with the other 60 billion symptoms here. But it's really incredible. Now there's different receptor types, but histamine receptors, in other words, where histamine works, is all throughout the body. We've got heart, GI tract, nervous system, respiratory system. Incredible.
And this is why it can be difficult to identify histamine intolerance, because we do have, as you said, histamine receptors throughout the body in lots of different organs. So there can be so many symptoms, which we're going to go into a little bit of. And the symptoms can change as well from one day to the next or 1 week to the next. So someone might present with certain symptoms and then they might change 2 weeks later. So it makes it really difficult to try to identify whether histamines are a driver. I accentuate the word driver because histamine intolerance is not a condition in itself, which we need to kind of establish. So somebody that says, I have histamine intolerance, that's not actually true. Well, it is true, but it's not the issue in itself. So it's a reaction to something underlying. So like everything in natural medicine, we want to find the actual cause of what's going on. Histamine intolerance is a reaction to something else. So, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why you may have a histamine intolerance. So I just want to establish that. We're not saying this is a condition in itself. We want to find out why you have histamine issues. So there are 4 receptors, H1 to H4, and they are housed all throughout our body, in our gut, in our brain, in our heart, in our kidneys, liver, everywhere. So skin. So that just goes to show how many different sort of symptoms you can have in all those, if they're sort of, activated in every one of those receptors. You're going to get lots of different symptoms.
Okay, now speaking of symptoms, you want to list a few of the symptoms, which are very vague and very difficult because it's kind of like could be millions of things. But let's give people what sort of symptoms can you, if you're thinking, when I eat cured meats or tuna, which are extraordinarily high in histamine. These are normal foods.
They're healthy foods, like as you said, well, not the cured meat so much maybe, but some
bacon.
Cured meats. Well, yeah, I guess that's healthy.
What if you had bacon for breakfast, bacon and eggs, and then for lunch you had a tin tuna on your sandwich?
You just heard the cameraman just groaning.
Yeah, I know. Bacon. And tuna.
And he's a vegetarian.
I know. And there's vegetarian sources too, like some vegetables and that sort of thing. Yeah. So and these are normal kind of foods that most people eat, not vegetarians.
Well, what about the old smashed avo on toast that lots of people have?
Oh,
that's a nice healthy meal as well, and a side of sauerkraut. How healthy is that?
Now, I do love bacon, I've got to admit. Now imagine if you and I ate the same sort of thing and you've got histamine intolerance and I haven't, I would happily sail through the day and you would get sick. Yeah. And we're eating the same food, and it comes back to this old Hippocrates saying one man's food's another man's poison, or woman, sorry to be sexist, but I didn't write it. It was 600 years before BC, so it was back before the PCs came in. Yes. But one man's food is another man's poison. Yeah. And this is a really good example. So sorry, what sort of symptoms are you looking for?
So look, they can be anything, and obviously the allergenic type symptoms. So you can get wheezy after you've eaten some histamines, or you have histamine issues. You can get the itchy eyes, the stuffy nose, the runny nose, that type of thing. But some of the maybe lesser known symptoms could be something like tachycardia. So your heart rate will increase.
Yeah, and you feel it. You kind of, I'm getting tachy, and people just got, and your heart just feels. You can feel your heart. Yep,
you can get anxious. So you can get that anxiety, and that heart palpitations is going to relate to that. You can get swelling. So some people, you've seen people whose lips swell with anaphylaxis, that type of thing. So you can get tissue swelling because obviously there's histamine receptors in the skin as well. So extremities, for me, that's always been a big one. So I can get severe swelling, a sort of severe edema in my legs and my fingers and things like that, to the point where sometimes I wouldn't have been able to put a shoe on. That's how bad the swelling can get. I mean, you've seen it.
I know, I was going to say. Oh, sorry, I was looking at Nick's legs the other day and I noticed.
I had some histamine issues. I kind of got histamine a few weeks ago, and I came in and I was had the ankles the size of Texas. So,
do we call them cankles? Or
well, I was going to call them cankles. I don't know if that's the right thing to say or not. But
we can say you literally had pitting edema, if you know what I'm saying.
I had severe pitting edema, I think I'd put on 4 or 5 kilos of fluid within the space of about 3 or 4 days. Probably less than that, actually. That's how quick it can happen. Yeah. So swelling can be one. As I said, so breathing issues, a bit of asthma type symptoms, sweating, that sort of thing. Itchy skin as well. That can be another one. Low blood pressure, which you're not going to. Well, you might feel, because if you feel a bit faint.
You can get a condition called orthostatic hypotension, which means you stand up quickly and you get a bit of a head rush because there's not enough blood getting to your head.
Vertigo, again. So
dizziness,
even just all the time, which I had after COVID. I had vertigo 24 hours a day for about a week.
Jeez.
So it can be that. What else? We've got so many on here.
Crazy.
Heartburn is another one as well. Bloating, so all your digestive type symptoms. So bloating, diarrhea is really common as well. So high histamine scores diarrhea.
Do you want to talk about some of the other reasons of high histamine with the hormones, like progesterone?
Yeah, so this one's a really fascinating one, and I see quite a few clients that have this issue with histamines, and they don't realise that it's histamine. So there are estrogen receptors on mast cells. So when our estrogen goes up, it attaches to a mast cell, our histamine goes up. So a lot of the PMS symptoms that women can experience, so the fluid retention, the bloatedness, sometimes the bowel changes, anxiety around their periods, puffy face, all of that sort of thing. The mood changes as well. So mood issues are another symptom of histamine issues. Can be related more to histamines than the high estrogen itself.
Wow.
So the high estrogen is a factor, because obviously estrogen going up at certain times of the month, but the fact that it's pulling histamine up with it is what's causing a lot of these symptoms, which is really interesting. And we're going to talk about 2 of the reasons why we may not be breaking down histamines overly well, but one of them is an enzyme called the diamine oxidase enzyme, which we'll talk a bit more about. But
the DAO, we'll call it DAO for the listeners.
Estrogen down regulates that. So not only do we lose that ability to break down histamines in the gut, we're also got all these other issues. So estrogen's a really interesting one. So and that's why I think a lot of times too, women in certain times, life stages, so postmenopausally or that late perimenopause, when they're having wild fluctuations of their estrogen and their progesterone is low,
so not ovulating.
A lot of women find they're more anxious and they're putting on the weight. There's other reasons for the weight as well, but a lot more fluidity and a lot more, their stress response is much more sensitive and things like that. And that's because the histamine issues can be a factor as well. So the hormonal aspect is very interesting. And interestingly, progesterone it also inhibits that mast cell degranulation, and it increases DAO enzyme. So when someone has estrogen dominance or low progesterone, then they're going to feel that a lot more, which is why it's really important to have that good ratio between estrogen and progesterone. So I find that a really interesting one with PMS. Endometriosis as well. Histamines are involved in endometriosis. I didn't know that
because the estrogen dominance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that can be a really strong, continuation.
Well, I'd love to do all this sort of stuff, but I'm intolerant to exercise. What does that mean?
This is a really cool one. I get so excited.
I just poke you with this, don't I?
I know, because until you know about it, you don't put any of this together.
No.
And so, and that's what I was saying. A lot of these symptoms can seem so random and different, and what's going on today and what's going on now, whereas it's all actually tied in. So, Exercise intolerance can be another one. So have you ever heard of exercise-induced asthma?
Yep.
So that could be more of a actual histamine response.
Yeah.
So I have experienced this in the past.
And you're an exerciseaholic.
Yeah.
You used to do body sculpting. I didn't say bodybuilding and stuff.
You didn't, this day, no.
Body sculpting.
Body sculpting.
I've got a friend who's doing body sculpt. Well, what is she doing?
I don't know what it's called now. I mean, when I did it, it was body sculpting. There was only bodybuilding, body sculpting. That's it. Now there's fitness and model and all different categories.
I think she's in the bikini
so I'm not
group.
Sure. She might be...
I should ask her. This
I don't know.
She's great.
I really
she won the event.
Yeah, I know. She looked amazing. You showed me.
She looks
great.
Great, yeah.
So, there's only 2 categories when I did it. And then short and tall. That was it.
She's about average height. I can't remember how tall she is, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what it was. So, I'm a big exerciser, but I can't do super high intense exercise because that's when I have the issue. So I will get to the point where I'll just be wheezing.
Wow.
I have to bend over and can't breathe.
Yeah.
But I have had women who swell up, and I also get puffy fingers and puffy feet when I exercise as well. If I'm doing quite high intense exercise. So one, stress will activate histamines because it's activating that immune response, and heat is another thing. So heat intolerance will cause histamine issues as well. So with that exercise, then that's what can activate it. And so if you're someone who exercises and you find you get quite dizzy when you exercise, or you feel quite faint, if you're doing high intensity exercise, or you find you do suffer a little bit of breathing issues but only when you exercise, it could possibly be.
The weird thing, I mean, a lot of people don't like going to the gym, and this is not that.
No,
this is not, because people are intolerant. It's like when you exercise hard, you're this sort of thing. Now, paradoxically, if you also suffer insomnia, that's a risk factor for this, because histamine is really involved in sleep and everything too.
Yeah.
And as you correctly point out, our body makes histamine. We're picking on it today, but you need it.
You do need it.
It's made from histidine, which is an essential amino acid.
Definitely.
That has all sorts of benefits. Well, of course, it's essential. It doesn't get higher on the food rankings.
Amino acid,
It's not a kind of if you need it essential. It's the essential amino acid.
It is, yeah.
So it's very interesting. But also people who suffer a lot of, like my mother does actually, travel sickness.
Yeah, this is an interesting one.
Yeah.
So travel sickness or motion sickness can be histamine related as well. So it activates that receptor in the brain that's responsible for your... What do they call it? The vomitus?
That one, yeah.
So it makes you feel nauseous.
Yeah.
So that can be an indication too. Some people that get travel sickness. Nosebleeds is another random one you might not think.
Vasodilation.
Yeah. Yeah, I suffer that, and we will talk about mould and its connection as well. But when I go into a mouldy house, if I'm there for more than 10 hours and staying the night, I'll get nosebleeds.
Amazing. I mean, so we've got these things, these very vague symptoms, and there's no real blood test for this, is there?
It's difficult.
Yeah.
There is, you can measure whole blood histamine.
Yeah.
It's not overly accurate. It's a little bit harder to, you can measure your eosinophils and things like that to have a look at those levels, but it is a little bit harder. So we'll talk about ways that we can maybe try and identify a histamine issue.
Yeah, we'll get to the solution thing. All these symptoms, you mentioned DA, diamino oxidase. Now, remember there's monoamine oxidase and diamino oxidase. That's just the structure of the amino acids and which enzyme breaks them down. People are probably familiar with MAO inhibitors.
Yes.
So you inhibit the breakdown of the monoamines because they help with the brain.
Yeah.
But diamines are broken down too, like histidine.
Yeah.
And so if that's problematic and histamine, you haven't got enough DAO, you just get a build-up of histamine. Yeah. So what regulates that?
So DAO is what they call extracellular enzyme. So it's outside the cells, and it helps to, mop up histamine outside the cells, and it's also like a lot housed in the epithelial cells in the gut. So foods, as we said before, foods that are coming in, it helps to deactivate that histamine, break it down and get rid of it so you don't get a reaction to it. So there's so many things that can impact DAO enzyme production. So one of them would be a polymorphism. So
now polymorphism, we better explain what that is.
Yeah, so polymorphism it's a genetic irregularity, I guess you could say. So anyone that has that that gene SNP for DAO means that their body is not able to produce DAO as well as other people, so they may have lower levels.
And we've all got these weird polymorphism things, you know. We've all got multiples of them, and it just depends. So you could just be born with this, and that means you'll always have a predisposition to that. It's like a gene that's sort of switched on in the wrong area, different area. Because sometimes high histamine can be good for you, you know, but you don't want too much of it too much of the time.
No, that's right.
So it's a bit of a weird one. What about drugs? Any drugs can affect it?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. So it's a lot of drugs that can impact the DAO production. Antidepressants. How many people are on it? Now, this one's an interesting one because I mean, I see a lot of clients who are on antidepressants and anxiolytics as well, so anti-anxiety medication, and it doesn't do much, so it doesn't work for them. So if they're high histamines can create depressive moods. It can also create anxiety, so both ends of the scale as well. So if you're on an antidepressant, it's reducing your DAO production. Then you're going to have higher histamines, which means it's going to impact your mood further. So that could be one reason why for some people antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication doesn't work as well.
Wow.
So that's quite common. This is a funny one. Antihistamines, Steve. Antihistamines actually block that DAO enzyme activity. So which I think I heard someone say once, it's like the perfect drug for the drug company, because the more you take of it, the more you need of it. So as soon as you stop taking it, you get that significant bounce back effect of histamine. So then you go back on the antihistamine because you're having all these reactions again. Oh no, I'm still having them. They're getting worse. I've got to take more antihistamine. So antihistamines is one. Antihypertensives, so for blood pressure issues, diuretics, antibiotics, obviously, because they're screwing the gut up.
Wow.
Yeah, like NSAIDs, so all your pain medications.
Yeah, all your
really
anti-inflammatories.
Common. Anti-inflammatories, thyroid medications as well. And that's interesting as well, particularly with hyperthyroidism and Graves', which is the autoimmune version of that. Anxiety, heart palpitations, there are a lot of those presenting symptoms. Could that possibly be also contributing from histamine intolerance as well, coming into play because of the medications possibly? So that's something to take into consideration as well. Immune suppressants, obviously, the OCP, so oral contraceptive pill, doesn't significantly block DAO, but it does deplete you, and we'll talk about methylation, depletes you of a lot of those important nutrients for methylation, so B12, folate, your zinc, your magnesium, all really important for DAO production. So a lot of women who are on the pill, could they possibly be getting issues with histamines? I know anxiety is quite common with the pill. A lot of that can be from high copper, but but our histamines.
So these are really common medications.
Really common,
everyone's on some of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not, but a lot. Actually, come to think of it, it's not that common. I'm not taking the pill, all right?
No, you're not taking the pill.
But I won't get pregnant, I promise. I'm one of those men that are real men, like
you've got your built-in anti. No, well, actually, it's not an anti-contraceptive. It's just an anti-pregnancy.
Anti-pregnancy thing. I'm not getting pregnant. I'm on the pill. No, it's pretty incredible. But even women with hormonal imbalances, and it's funny because a lot of this is geared around women. Do you know much about the sex differences between? I haven't researched this myself. Is women get histamine intolerance, or is it? Yeah,
I see more women with histamine.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, but in saying that, most of the clients I see are women.
Yeah.
So I guess I can't say. I mean, well, in my family, both my brothers get histamine. They get the allergy. I've never had an allergy in my life.
Neither have I.
But they get all the allergies, so they get on the different side of it. So I would say women. Look, I honestly can't say because I see so many more women that I see it all in women. So that's probably why I would say, and there's that estrogen sort of factor with women, and also the high stress. I know a lot of men can be highly stressed as well, but women can be very stressed, and as we said, stress can be a trigger as well. So there's some things that can cause the DAO deficiency. So the gut is a big one, as we talked about. So obviously a lot of that DAO is housed in the gut. So any imbalances in the gut are going to impact that. So, IBS, inflammatory bowel diseases, really common. So, celiac disease, so Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, really common to have high histamines in those type conditions as well. I'm going to say diverticulitis as well, because I have seen quite a lot of clients with a lot of the histamine type presenting symptoms. So leaky gut as well, because one, if you're not breaking down the food well, that's creating that gut hyperpermeability, and then the histamine is then breaching that barrier and crossing into the bloodstream, and then you get histamine running through the bloodstream. So leaky gut can be a significant driver of histamine issues as well. And then your nutrient deficiencies, which we'll talk about with the DAO. So I'll say now, cofactors needed for the production of DAO. So B6, vitamin C, zinc, iron, magnesium, all of those. And,
so commonly deficient.
So common. If you've got gut issues, you're not going to absorb those very well. So they're kind of just like twofold effect.
So you want to be eating and drinking like an angel.
That's right.
Make sure you have your green tea, won't you?
Well,
no.
Green tea as well, Steve, can inhibit it. Green tea and black tea can inhibit DAO. And the other one, which a lot of people aren't going to like, alcohol.
Nah.
Yeah, so how common is it when you see people, I have a lot of friends that drink alcohol and they say, I get that flushing effect, or I can't sleep that night, or I get a pounding headache after I have wine, things like that.
There's a staff member here, I won't mention, I suppose say it to her, I told her what we're talking about. She said, oh my God, whenever I drink red wine, I get a terrible headache.
Yeah.
And I was like, you've got to listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
And then a male staff member here came over and said to me, oh, yeah, I get terrible migraines and cluster headaches. And it's like, well, I suffered with them years ago.
Yeah.
And still sort of like you have that predisposition to it, it's like because it's genetic. And it's sort of like, it's like, wow. So this is really common.
Oh, really common. That's why I don't drink alcohol, to be honest. I can't drink it because I react so badly.
Apart from you, there's two ladies who sit behind me, and I won't mention their names, but both of them have this issue.
Yeah.
And suffer migraines and headaches.
I'll get heart palpitations, racing heart. So I could have 3 sips of wine and my heart will race. So I just stay away from alcohol altogether, which is really sad because I found my drink last year or the year before, Steve, because I've never been a drinker anyway.
At the age of 28, you finally found a drink you like.
Finally found my drink at 28, and it took me all those years. I've never really been. I can't remember. Oh my God, I've literally just had a mental blank. It's called. It's a whiskey, peanut butter whiskey. Maybe I need some peanut butter whiskey for my brain. I love
peanut butter.
Peanut butter whiskey. Oh man. It is the best. If you like sweet, because it's very sweet, it's like a liqueur type thing, but it's literally the best drink, and you've got to go find it.
I'm not really old
I won't say the brand because I guess we're not supposed to promote brands, or actually even drinking for that matter.
But go out and drink this stuff.
Go out and find it. But it's the most amazing drink. But I can't drink that either because I just get really bad heart palpitations, and then I'm awake all night, and you get anxious. So I don't. So I don't drink alcohol.
I'm a non-drinker, but now I'm going to want to be a drinker. Peanut butter whiskey.
Oh, seriously. I can't. Yeah, I just love it.
Wow.
But I've had a bottle sitting in the cupboard for a year now because I just won't drink it anymore. So
I am. Oh, Wigan, we've got it. Is that it?
Oh,
is it?
yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah. I don't think I should say the brand name.
Sheepdog. Sheepdog. Yeah, that's what I thought it said. I thought, am I reading this far?
Yeah, sheepdog. It's not that easy to find. It's actually not Australian either. I thought with the name sheepdog, you would think it was Australian, but I think it's Canadian actually.
Thought there'd be a Kelpie on the cover and everything.
I know, but yeah. Anyway, we digress.
God,
we just got so excited about peanut butter.
We digress and everything. I
know.
It's quite incredible. So it's sort of like there's so many causes of this thing. But we'll get to the solutions in a sec. But I guess it's time to talk about sort of just some things to just improve DAO activity because people are wondering about this DAO stuff. Now you've got to remember that the DAO you need some of it and then some of it, too much of it's bad and all this sort of stuff like MAO. Yeah. So all right. So someone's identified with these things and they want to increase DAO. What healthy things can we do to improve DAO activity?
Okay, so the first thing you want to do is work on your gut health, obviously, because if you've got poor gut health, then nothing is going to work. So that'd be the first thing that I would recommend. Another thing is obviously make sure you've got those cofactors on board and in good levels to help with the production of DAO, so your B6, your vitamin C, iron, those types of things. Copper, what I will say about copper is I never I never supplement copper ever because...
Yeah, I've never done that either.
No, because very, very rare to have a copper deficiency. It can happen, but it's very rare. It's you're more likely to have a zinc deficiency, and then that can impact your copper-zinc ratio because you kind of want a one-to-one. So I never prescribe copper, but you can get it from a lot of foods. So I generally prescribe foods if there is, just to be on the safe side. But copper, iron and magnesium, and how common is it to have deficiencies in those?
Oh, well, most women have most young women have deficiencies in iron.
Yeah, most do.
It's incredible. I mean, well, this is really incredible because, this is easy to get and you may already have it already, but also you can develop it. Like, let's say my DO activity is kind of normal and I went out and had a really high histamine diet for a few days.
Yep.
My wife did the shopping, let's say hypothetically, gets me a whole lot of beautiful cured meats that I do love eating. I'm a real weakness for that.
Yeah.
And I'll have, tins of tuna for lunch, which is not unusual for anyone to have.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a high histamine dinner or something, and snack on the worst nuts that you could possibly imagine, because nuts have histamine.
Yeah, nuts do have histamine.
So, I mean, you could develop this condition too, even if you just have too much histamine.
Yeah, so you can short-term have high histamine and have some of the issues as well. So that's another factor, and we'll talk about how it's kind of difficult to pinpoint even different foods that might be causing the issues. So, but a low histamine diet, which we'll talk about at the end, can also help to improve your DAO production because it calms everything down.
Yeah.
So DAO. So that's one way that we help the body breaks down and gets rid of histamine.
Well, you got to talk to me about histamine N-methyltransferase.
Yeah,
what the hell is that?
HMNT gene.
Yeah, let's call
so
that.
it's a gene and an enzyme. So this is the other way. So two ways that we break down histamines in our body. So the DAO, as we said, and then the HMNT, so histamine N-methyltransferase, is the other way. So this works intracellularly. So obviously DAO is outside the cells, in the gut, and mops up anything outside the cell. This works intracellularly, and it metabolizes 50 to 80% of histamine in the cells. So that's a really important job. So the way that it does this is, have we all heard of methylation?
We've heard of, I think we've done lots of podcasts on methylation, so if you haven't, go listen to our old podcast on methylation.
Yeah, so basically what this does is it is involved in, the methylation is involved in this process, and it helps to break down the histamines. So HMNT is very important, as we said, and you want to have good amounts of it. But if you have a genetic polymorphism, so this is where I have the HMNT, I have the SNP, so I have an issue.
You tested it, did you?
Yeah, so I've tested it. Yeah, so I struggle to break it down intracellularly and extracellularly. So,
oh my God.
So I got like a double whammy of it. So yeah.
That's why when I feed you foods and snacks, I always be careful about it.
I know. So Steve's the best in the office. He used to brings in all the snacks for everybody, and used to bring in, when the girls used to be here, chocolate and things like that.
Brownies.
Chocolate brownies and things for the girls.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'd walk in with crackers and, tuna at the time, which I don't eat now, but crackers and tuna and apples for me, because I can't eat all the
Today
chocolate.
it was just nuts and apple. Yeah,
because chocolate's another high histamine, but which we'll talk about, all the fun stuff. So histamine methyltransferase. So that's the other way that we break it down.
And so if you've got that SNP, you're already you're just going to have histamine problems, aren't you? You just got to be careful.
You've got to be careful. So, and I think that's the thing to sort of point out. Just because you have the genetic propensity doesn't mean that you will have the issue, because it's epigenetics, as we've talked about in the past, that switches it on. So the environment is what causes that gene to not work or work.
And I mean, you've mentioned one very important gene, but there's how many genes are responsible for histamine?
Well, but 200 genes, Steve. Researchers have discovered more than 200 genes. Wow. So, I mean, there's a lot involved in it, but there's 5 sort of ones that they've established are the most significant. So the histamine methyltransferase is one, obviously the DAO is another, MAO gene, so the one that you talked about, monoamine oxidase B. So that one is involved with the DAO. They kind of pair together. And then I know you love saying this word, Steve, the MTHFR.
Oh, I can't say that word.
Tetrahydrofolate reductase.
That's the legal way to say it,
not the other one.
No, the other one, no.
Yeah, so the MTHFR gene is also involved. So obviously we talked about with HMNT, there's a process that goes through the methylation that helps to break that down. So if you have issues with your MTHFR and your methylation isn't 100%, you're going to have issues there. And then the other one is AO1C. which is involved with DAO. So, so they're sort of the 5 main ones. Oh, and histidine carboxylase is another one. So
that's involved in putting histidine into histamine.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that occurs. Naturally in the body. That's how we make our own histamine.
Yeah.
But if it's upregulated, you're going to make more histamine.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're going to be in trouble. And it's quite amazing.
Yeah.
So like all these histamine things. And my personal story with histamine was I want to make a podcast about myself. It was when I used to suffer those terrible migraines like you did. And like a lot of people do. That's histamine reaction. In fact, San Migraine, which is the drug of choice to prevent it, is an antihistamine.
Yes.
And antihistamine's been used for migraines for years. Nowadays, they're starting to use calcitonin and gene-related peptide monoclonal antibodies, which bind up calcitonin and gene-related peptide, which then that chemical goes on to trigger histamine. So it's going up the food chain a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's very interesting. You're right. Now, histamine in the brain causes vasodilation.
Yep.
So you get that terrible, terrible pain in your head.
Yeah.
And they give you triptans, which squash the blood vessels. Because serotonin squashes the blood vessels, and these are serotonergic drugs.
Yeah.
So they'll relieve a migraine if you've got a classic migraine.
Yeah.
So breakthrough in medicine, about turn of the century, those things started to be invented. But now we've got the new calcitonin and gene-related peptide antibodies, but they're all around histamine. So none of those drugs address the cause.
None of them do.
It's not like you haven't got a migraine due to a triptan deficiency.
No, that's right.
They can be used acutely, and I'm for acute medicine.
Oh, if anyone's ever suffered migraines, they will know that you will do anything to get rid of a migraine.
As I said, there's a guy in England who drilled a hole in his own head.
Look, I can
understand it too.
People might think, that's very extreme, but I can understand that when you have it. I mean, I used to get migraines so severe that I'd be 2 days locked in a dark room and I would be vomiting continually, that type of thing. I had them really bad. So, there would have been times when I was a kid when, like, if I could just drill a hole in my head to get this pain out, to get the pressure out, you do it. So they can be horrendous for some people. People... I've had people snigger when I said I've had a migraine, and it's like, it's just a
bad
headache.
Yeah. No.
It's definitely not just a bad headache.
I've had migraines and headaches. Headaches I ignore.
Yeah, headaches
but you can't ignore.
No.
And it's funny, I was camping on the weekend with a mate of mine, and he's in his 70s now, 70s, I think 70s, 60s, something like that. And he said he used to get migraines, and he used to drink Coke and alcohol and lock himself in a bedroom with a cold towel over his head for vasoconstriction and tie it up.
Really?
And the light, he was so photosensitive that he'd shut the door and he'd put towels, his wife put towels on, just that crack of light.
Yeah.
And I remember the photosensitivity of that.
Yeah, I used to get that. It's horrendous.
It's like we're sitting here under fairly bright lights. If you had a migraine, you'd be, I would have been, with the photosensitivity, you'd be absolutely burning in the head by now.
Well, that's why I would be locked in a dark room. Noise as well. Any sort of noise is amplified 100 times. So the noise and light sensitivity, and then obviously the vomit. So any movement and vomit. And that's when it comes back, with that vomiting aspect of the histamines as well, with the travel sickness. So there's that nausea effect as well.
Well, you do get nauseous. I've chucked up a few times with it. But as I said, for me it was the pressure, and it used to be right here. And I swear to God, if you drilled a hole there, there'd be something coming out.
Yeah.
It just that feeling like someone had shoved a tennis ball inside your brain. That sort of fellow was just a pressure.
Yeah.
And that's why people, and you got to remember in the olden days, and if you want to look up some scary old pictures, they used to call it a timpani, where they used to drill holes, and I'm saying about that size, like a 50-cent piece hole in their skull, and remove the skull to get rid of the evil spirits that were causing the migraines.
Causing the migraines, I know.
And you know what it used to do? Used to relieve the symptoms.
Did it?
Because the brain would swell, and because it was a swelling brain at the time. Yeah. So, of course, they kept doing it for many years.
Because it was the evil spirits.
And they just do it all over the head. It's sore here. Wow. Okay, we'll get rid of that bit of skull.
Oh, wow.
And here's the most amazing thing. They actually survived the procedures, and they know this because they've found skulls with these holes in it that have started to grow back.
Really?
So, they've survived for years with a large portion of their skull missing. Because you remember how bad the migraines were. Imagine if you were a prehistoric caveman, and you just say, of course, drill a hole in my head.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You didn't know any better.
Probably didn't have power drills, but they might have been the hand ones.
No, they used to get a sharpened stone and cut the skull away with it.
Oh, did they?
Oh, yeah.
And did they survive the bacterial infection from that? I guess
some of them did.
They would. Wow.
Most didn't. Some didn't. But you remember, like that famous Linton surgery that was done a few years ago where 3 people died.
Oh, I know. You told me about this the other day. I couldn't believe that.
He did, look, in a more positive note, he did break the record for the fastest leg amputation.
That's true. All 3 of them died, but aside from that.
The person who lopped the leg off died. Yeah. So it's not shocking.
Let's explain the whole thing, because it's just bizarre.
It was done on a stage.
Yeah.
Because that's how you did medicine in the old days.
Yeah.
And he was showing people, not learny doctors, people, how to amputate a leg. I don't know why. But it was a demonstration.
Paid money to come and see.
Because you got to remember, it's a bit of a spectacle. There was no Netflix back then, Nick, so you had to entertain something.
Had to entertain yourself somehow.
So anyway, he's this guy. Now, of course, this was pre-anaesthetic days, so they had an assistant to hold down the person because they were screaming and writhing in pain.
I shouldn't laugh.
So don't laugh. So anyway, Lynn was out there and he's chopping away at the leg, and he accidentally lops off the fingers of the assistant. So the assistant also suffered septicemia and died. You're laughing at someone's
it's just
fingers flying off the stage.
Yeah.
Anyway, because the blood splattered out of this living person that was conscious, driving around, splashing blood everywhere, got someone on the front. Just laughing at a leg lopping off. Someone in the front row got blood all over them. Yeah. And of course, it was so horrific that he died of a heart attack.
I'm sorry, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. It's making me cry.
I know. People dying of surgery makes me laugh the same way.
I need a tissue. I'm so much.
Where do you drink it?
Sorry.
Where's some of that sheepdog drink here?
It's just the funniest thing ever. Look, I don't have tissues anyway.
I haven't got any. I didn't bring a tissue. I haven't got any histamine problems.
No, that's right. I'll keep going.
You're crying.
Actually, no, could I? Because it's all on my face. All right. Okay, Steve, sorry, we just had to stop. I had to wipe my tears away.
I made you cry, Nick.
I'm laughing, but it literally is a comedy of errors.
It is comedy of errors. So the guy lopped his leg off, died. The fingers, septicemia, which is a blood infection, died. And the person in the front row, splattered with blood, died of a heart attack.
Yeah. Yes.
There's also old. Remember the guy that discovered that nerves ran by electrical impulses?
Yes.
And they discovered it by making batteries and putting a charge through a dead person, and the person would not come alive, but move. And one of the doctors he was demonstrated to died of a heart attack from that. So you can imagine it stiff, like a dead person moving all of a sudden after being dead for a few days.
The first time you'd seen it, that would be a bit scary, So
pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
I think we've got to talk about histamines and all that.
Well, we need to. I'm now composed myself.
Right. So I'll put myself in the situation. Let's say I suspect I've got some of this going on. Yes. Are there what sort of tests would you recommend I get to try and figure out this could be a cause of my symptoms?
Well, I was just going to say we should go through some of the reasons, but we've gone through a lot of them. But I do want to point out before we get to testing, mould.
Oh, mould, you said that, yeah.
Really interesting because mould illness is becoming much more prevalent these days. You're seeing it a lot. I mean, I guess in our country we've had a lot of flooding, particularly in Queensland, things like that, in the last couple of years. But mould illness is significant, and that's a whole topic all on its own. So we're not going to go into that. But obviously mould activates the immune system. Yep. Releases mycotoxins and things like that from the spores, so that creates histamine issues. So that's really it's a really big area, but mould is really a really prevalent thing, and so histamine is related to mould. We didn't cover that. So and also any environmental toxins. On that note, sick building syndrome again a really common thing as well. So when you have water damaged buildings, it's not just creating mycotoxins, so spores. It also creates like a kind of ecosystem within that area, the water damaged area. So also bacteria, viruses, and all that sort of thing. So that can all start to come out, and we're breathing this stuff in. So environmental is quite significant. And the other one that's really interesting, probably a little bit less so, but becoming more common, is EMFs.
Wow, electromagnetic frequency. So EMF stands for electromagnetic frequency or electromotive force, depending on where you studied what physics. Yeah. But basically it's frequencies that are given out by radio emission, which any electrical appliance gives out a radio frequency. People just think it's their phone.
Yeah.
But let's just say the phone. The phone is constantly pinging signals.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look on it and it's got bars on it, that means there's some tower around giving off 4G or 5G coverage.
Yeah.
And so we are constantly bathed in these things.
Oh, it's everywhere. So as you said, you know, the phones. I mean, at home now we've got a light. After we did the sleep one, I went and got circadian lighting, but they're all run by an app, Bluetooth. So
I've got one of those now.
Yeah, that's right. You told me you had one of those.
I could turn my light on at home right now. I probably couldn't. It's Bluetooth. Wouldn't reach that far.
Wouldn't reach that far.
50 k's? No, probably won't.
Yeah, but everything, you know, your refrigerators, a lot of them have, you know, the Bluetooth, so you can just order straight off the fridge. Washing machine, everything. You know, we sleep maybe plugged in with our phones plugged in beside our bed, or we have our office behind our bedroom wall where, you know, maybe your cable, your internet box is, things like that. So EMFs really can be quite significant because, again, they activate that stress response. The immune system is activated. It's interesting. I saw a documentary years ago. This was way before I was a naturopath, and it was an American documentary, and it was people who were allergic to the modern world, so allergic to anything EMF. So they were all going out into the middle of the desert and having no electrical devices, no electricity, nothing around them. And this was before Bluetooth, even back then.
Yeah.
And I was just watching, going, how could you be allergic to this stuff? Yeah. But to the point where, and then I think back, and I think some of the symptoms they were presenting with were histamine type. I think they're probably more mast cell activation syndrome, which is another very, very severe sort of offshoot of histamines. But so EMFs, something that you wouldn't maybe think about, a lot of people can be quite sensitive to, and that's activating that stress response. So that can be another reason. We talked about gut dysbiosis. Some of the bacteria in our gut produce their own histamines as well. So
you're going to say Klebsiella, aren't you?
I'm going to say Klebsiella. Yeah,
bastard of a thing.
It's terrible for that. Like Klebsiella is a commensal. It's an opportunistic bacteria, actually. So in high amounts, you can have a lot of histamine being produced by your own gut bacteria, let alone anything that you're taking to your diet.
Constantly making it.
Yeah, Clostridium and some Enterobacter strains, E. coli as well. So
all the
things in your
usual
own gut.
Factors, Citrobacter, all the nasties.
All the nasties. So they can produce that as well. Poor methylation, as we said, as well. Poor sleep, because that impacts your stress response.
Yep.
And then that, obviously, anything that impacts your stress response activates your immune response, which activates mast cell degranulation. So, and then pet dander, polluted air. So there's so many things.
High sugar you've got.
High sugar is interesting. Sorry to cut you off, Steve, but this is interesting because they find in type 2 diabetics have very, very high histamine load.
Wow, okay.
And in type 1 diabetics, very, very low. Yeah. So there you go. It comes back to all this balance. It's just, I find it like really cool, really fascinating.
Absolutely incredible.
And another cool thing I learnt that's people with anorexia nervosa.
Yeah.
They have very, very high levels of histamine. So when your histamine levels are very high, sometimes it shuts down your appetite. And I have that when if I get very high histamines, I don't want to eat anything. So that could feed into that not wanting to eat.
And we better explain it. Anorexia just means without appetite. Yeah. Anorexia nervosa is a condition where you have body dysmorphia and all that. There's a few things, a few eating disorders. Bulimia is when you overeat and then vomit.
Yeah.
And there's purge eating disorders and all these sort of other disorders. Yeah. But anorexia is the lack of appetite due to the high histamines. Yeah. And you know when you're sick and you got high histamine because you're sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't feel like eating.
No, definitely not. I mean, I remember when I had COVID. I mean, and a lot of the symptoms I had with COVID were histamine activation. So I was sick, I was dizzy, poor muscle tone and weakness. That can be another one. Obviously, couldn't breathe properly. All of those sorts of things. So really fascinating. So there's a lot of causes of histamine intolerance, and that's where it comes back to. It's really difficult to just have someone come to you and say, okay, it must be histamines because, like we said in the beginning, they may react to one thing one day and not the other. Food, so we haven't talked about the diet, but you could eat, say, avocado, which is very high histamine. I think you've got some
I've got a paper
there,
here,
which is really interesting, actually.
Which is great, but I mean, you got to remember that avocado is a healthy food.
It's really healthy, and someone might eat. I used to eat avocado every day, so someone might eat avocado every day, and they might have, like you said, a tin of tuna and some crackers for lunch with the side of sauerkraut.
I found a really better paper that recommends high and low. I mean, you're right about that, but also red wine, sparkling wine, white wine.
Yeah.
Vegetables, tomato, sauerkraut, spinach. I mean...
Spinach, eggplant, pumpkin, mushrooms,
all those.
Any tin foods.
Yep, tuna, salmon, mackerel,
A lot of
herring,
fishes,
swordfish,
yeah.
sardines. Mm-hmm. No, I just bought the wife a whole heap of sardines. Of course, cheeses, of course.
Or anything aged, because it's creating that bacterial...
sausage is aged, isn't it?
Sausages, any smoked
parmesan,
fish or meats as well.
God, this
or
everything.
Or your cheeses, or your cultured dairy as well. So
shrimp,
yogurts,
oysters,
buttermilk,
clams.
We're just throwing them out everywhere.
Miso.
There's a lot.
Nuts. There's cashew nuts, almonds, pistachios, walnuts. All the nuts I bought you in today.
Pretty much all of them.
I bought. I thought macadamias. Yeah, they are.
Macadamias are lower.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of different foods, and that's what you see. Sometimes someone might react to a food for a while and then not, or sometimes their tolerance might be okay if they haven't had any of those foods for a while, and they have them and they feel terrible. But then you can't say, oh, it was because I ate this, because you might have eaten an avocado 4 days ago and had a reaction 4 days later.
It's so difficult.
So it's really difficult to sort of pinpoint any type of food that you might be reacting to.
God,
so
I'll tell you what, there's
the list is very long.
I know. I've got the low list now, and it's less than the high list.
Yeah, there's still a lot, but there's a lot you can't. Well, not that you can't have, but there's a lot that you may react to, and everybody's different. Some people may react to some of those foods, and some people may not. So, and it's not about if you have histamine intolerance, which we'll talk about some sort of solutions. Yeah, it's not about being on a low histamine diet long term, because it's definitely not recommended.
Too restrictive.
It's way too restrictive. If you need to go on one, it's generally very short term, and a lot of time it is to identify whether histamines are an issue for you as well. So, test to consider.
Oh yeah, go to the test. Yeah, because this is tough. This is really difficult.
It can be, as I said, really difficult. So I mean, and in this country we don't have ready access to a lot of the blood testing that could identify these. They're all out-of-pocket expenses to get the type of blood testing done to identify. So one of the ways is a low histamine diet. Yeah. Short term, usually I say 2 to 4 weeks for a client, and if they feel better, some of their symptoms are reduced, then that can be an indication. Not a indication to then go on a histamine diet permanently. Yeah. Do not do that.
What about a re-challenge? That's what we did in the old days. Is you get them off the histamine foods, and then you re-challenge them with a super high histamine thing.
Yes. Yep.
And make sure it's a healthy histamine thing, like the tunas and the aged meats and nuts and those sort of things. So, cashew nut. Oh, geez, there's
cashew nuts. They're my favourite. I love cashew nuts.
You said you love them, and I'm going, well, eat some. And that's right.
I know. I'll just stare at them now. You just going to torment me for the rest of the day, Steve.
You can eat some of those nuts. Not many.
Not many. Can't eat almonds. No.
I really screwed you over today.
It's probably like any other nut mix. There'll be one macadamia in it.
It's kind of like, I know macadamia, so I got you some of those ones. So I knew they were low.
They were great, those macadamias.
Yeah, you like
really
those.
Nice.
But
so testing. So low histamine diet can be a way. Symptom. I always tell clients to keep a symptom diary. Yeah. Because it's interesting, because you may not be able to identify anything if you're just eating it, but if you're writing it down and you look back and go, oh, there's a pattern to what I've eaten and the symptoms I'm experiencing, and you can kind of work it out from there too. So symptom diary can be a good way as well. Organic acid testing can be good, not specifically for histamines, but you can look for mold. So mold will show up on an organic acid test. Also your neurotransmitter production, your gut, inflammatory markers, all of that sort of thing. So that's something, and also nutritional markers as well on an organic acid test. Gut microbiome mapping, obviously.
That's the one I was thinking of,
which I find a lot of high histamine producing bacteria in the gut of a lot of people if they have dysbiosis and things like that. A mycotox profile, so that's related to the mould.
Yeah, that's right.
So that will indicate whether you have mould issues. Genetic testing for any polymorphisms. Yeah. I mean, these are not cheap tests, so they're not tests you're just going to go out and get. So, if I'm looking at tests like this, we've done other investigations first. I don't generally go straight to something like mycotox profiles and things like that. You want to try and do a bit of a process of elimination first. But there's some ways that you could identify histamine.
All right, so I've got it. I think I've got it. What do I do about it?
All right, so what do you do about it?
The sort of take-home message.
So, yeah, the take-home message is treat the underlying cause.
Yeah.
So treat the histamine intolerance, treat the symptoms, or address the symptoms, but treat the cause, because if you don't treat the cause, you're never going to get better, and you're going to be continually on a low histamine diet and taking all these supplements. So you want to identify the cause. So you want to support your immune system and your nervous system as well. So a lot of people have a lot of stress, that type of thing. You want to make sure that they're supporting their nervous system. Obviously, cofactors for those enzymes, we want those in there as well. So as I said, your B6, your vitamin C, your magnesiums, your your nutrients involved in methylation as well. So B12, folates, because as we said, if you're not methylating well, that's going to be a factor as well. So supporting those detox pathways, liver support, obviously. Glutathione is another one that's a really good one as well for detoxification. And then for symptomatic relief, you can add in some herbs and nutrients that can be really helpful to inhibit that mast cell degranulation. So quercetin is really good for that.
That's a good. That's good for everything, isn't it?
So good, so good.
We sound like broken records for that one, don't we?
I know, and during COVID, quercetin was everything, and the reason being because it did inhibit that mast cell degranulation, is what happens when you have a virus. Yeah. So quercetin is really good. I use that a lot. I find I get good results with quercetin for symptomatic relief. Helps to get everything calmed down. And then your herbs for liver detox. So St. Mary's thistle is really good. Curcumin, broccoli sprout for that detox pathways as well. Your methylation nutrients as well, B12, folates. Glycine can be really good for detoxification for people who are very sensitive. Right. And I will say people who have histamine issues can be very sensitive. Yeah. So can react to everything, can react to supplements. I'm one of those people. I can react to supplements. So sometimes you've got to start very low with a lot of people, particularly if their detox pathways are quite clogged up. But glycine's a really nice, gentle way to help detox, and it's really good for the nervous system as well, good for sleep. So that's a really good one to add in there. And then you've got your herbs, so nettle, really, really good for histamine. Nigella seed, I love Nigella. I know. So many good things about Nigella.
More coming out about that down the track,
there will be, yes, definitely. We've got some plans for that. Baker's skull cap, very good for that allergenic type picture. Gotu kola, that's a really good for mast cell inhibition. And vitamin D as well. Vitamin D. Really good as well. So, all right. So there's some things that you can...
So gut we won't mention, but there's some things you can do for the gut, can't you? Like some weird probiotics.
So you can do probiotics. And I think we've mentioned in other podcasts about probiotics. You've got to be careful with probiotics. Yeah. And I think we had a comment we didn't address in one of the YouTube things. Someone said probiotics are all bad. They had a bad reaction. So, yes, you do have to be very careful with probiotics. Depending on what's going on in your gut, they can make you feel worse. So, and histamine intolerance is one of those, because obviously probiotics are a bacteria. Yeah. So if you're feeding bacteria that is a histamine producer, or putting in a bacteria itself in some of the probiotics that actually are histamine producing strains, you're going to make yourself a lot worse. And you'll know it. Yeah. Because your symptoms will get a lot worse. So, but there are some specific probiotics that can help to degrade histamine. So a lot of your bifidobacteria strains, so they're quite good.
Pretty safe, those ones too.
They're so good. They're anti-inflammatory. They're great for the immune system. They do everything. Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG specifically is very good. A lot of the lactobacillus strains can be a little bit problematic. Yeah. But the rhamnosus GG strain stabilises mast cells, so it's a really good one. And then Lactobacillus plantarum may help to break down your histamines as well. So there's some good ones. So be very careful with your probiotics. Yep. Don't just go out and grab something off the shelf. No. Probiotics obviously can help with and polyphenols, of course, because they're really good for anything for the gut. Good for everything. And this is something I put in just to be wary of.
And I didn't know this, so let us know.
And a lot of this is from personal experience.
Oh, okay.
Some supplements can make histamine intolerance much worse. A big one, hydrochloric acid supplementation. So betaine hydrochloride, I give that to a lot of clients to help with acid production in the gut. So that can make histamines much worse.
Really?
I found that out the hard way.
Oh, okay.
B12 in some people, which can be a problem because obviously, like I said, most people with histamine intolerance have methylation issues. Obviously, B12 is very important in that whole process as well.
Very.
If you can't take B12, you can get quite sensitive to B12. So that's where sometimes I go more upstream and things like creatine, which we talked about in the creatine podcast, to help with more of an upstream impact.
Any forms
on
of
the
B12, like methylcobalamin? Or?
Yeah, so I don't give cyanocobalamin, so I don't know if people are going to react to that. But the methyl and the methylated forms, I find people can be quite sensitive to them.
Right.
Some digestive enzymes, because a lot of them are spore-based,
Yeah,
so the spore can create issues. And in some people, magnesium citrate. So the citrate is sort of fermented, so that can cause issues as well. So in some people you're fine. So, but there are just a few things to be wary of. And some people in general, if you're one of these people that react to every type of supplement that you take, it could well be that you're having issues with your detox pathways, and if you're having a lot of histamine issues as well. So microdosing can be really important in these people. So, I mean, I've had clients that to open up a capsule and tip a little bit out and close the capsule back up. So they might be having 1/10 of a capsule.
Wow.
And that's all they can tolerate. So until you sort of open up those detox pathways. So just be a little bit careful about anything that you go out and grab if you do have issues. And we did hold this up before. We didn't really go through it, but there's that many symptoms that you can have, then it's going to be quite hard to identify. But I just thought it'd be good to point out a lot of the ones that people might not think are related to histamine issues. So weak pulse, or a lot of people have low blood pressure, things like that. Osteoarthritis and osteopenia is another one.
Brittle bones,
yeah, because one of the I think it's I might be wrong. H4 is the osteoclast in the bone, so that can impact.
I didn't even think of that.
The bone health as well, wound healing. What are some of the other ones? Like some of these things are just like you wouldn't think that they are they're related to histamines, but
it's incredible.
Really interesting. So if you are having a lot of unexplained symptoms and you can't hit on what it is. It could be a consideration to
bedwetting. I mean,
bedwetting, anything bladder related, kidney related, obviously because we've got those receptors in the kidney and the liver.
Obviously, coughing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, or your normal seasonal allergies. Obviously, your menstrual issues. In males, there is premature ejaculation.
Why? What? What is it? That one. Okay.
There's infertility in women as well. It can be infertility in men or women.
Yeah, don't care about that.
Excessive morning sickness, so histamines with I'm just going to keep moving on.
Yeah, please move on.
I'm annoying the two men in the room, not ignoring the two men in the room.
Yes, please do.
Recurrent miscarriage.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this could be a factor as well. Morning sickness, so extreme morning sickness. So obviously histamines can be involved there.
Wow.
And I've known quite a few women who have endometriosis who have significant morning sickness, and there's that connection with the histamines there. So there's a lot. So yeah, look, we could just keep going for days with all of the different symptoms, but I think we've kind of hopefully highlighted that it's a very broad kind of area, and it can be quite hard to sort of pinpoint. And then when you do pinpoint it and go, okay, great, looks like it's a histamine issue, but then you've still got to find the underlying cause. So it can be a process.
I'm getting a migraine thinking about it.
Thinking about it.
But it's so difficult, and the only answer is they've got to see a naturopath, someone like you that specialise in this, because this is your area, obviously. I've experienced it. There's quite a few practitioners out there, actually great practitioners doing histamine now, because it is a really common. It's becoming more common every day. So and because of our diets and because of our lifestyles, our genes, and there's so many reasons you can pick up a bug in the gut and catch. You can literally catch this.
Yeah, well, any type of infection. So as I said, any viral infection can set it off. So anything that activates the immune system, any bacterial infection.
You had a viral infection, set it off. Badly.
Yeah, I had a viral infection that set mine off. Obviously I had little issues along the way, but that just really amplified what was going on. So interesting subject. I really like it.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. And we've scraped the surface today, but I'm looking at this flower, and there's so many more.
I will credit Seeking Health. This came out of a Seeking Health resource that I have, so just credit them, an amazing company in the US actually. So
yeah, look at that. It's a beautiful flower.
It is.
And scary. And we've all got some of these, no matter who you are.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't want to scare anyone and say, oh my God, I've got some of those symptoms, it must be histamines.
Everyone thinks that.
Not saying that, but I think if you have a lot of, symptoms that seem unrelated and you can't get your handle on it, it may be something to
Could be. I mean, it's like
into.
those, if you've been to America and they give those drug ads, do you suffer from tiredness? Yes, I do. What is it? And they try and sell a prescription drug for you. But this is real and this is scary because, everyone can have it. But this is huge, Nic. And you've really championed this, so thanks for bringing light to it.
Oh, no, like I said, it's a very fascinating subject. I love it. So
all right, well, that's better we've got time for, so we better leave you all till next week, and it should be fun next week. I think we're doing adaptogens next week.
I think we might be.
What a weird word. We're going to find out.
We're going to find out what they are.
Yeah, what's an adaptogen? What the hell is that? Anyway, to adapt to something. But anyway, all right, well, we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, bye, guys.
See ya.